I visited Rwanda for about 3 weeks, so I got to meet some of the people there. And you took power after the genocide had happened, where up to 1 million people had died, and said 250,000 women were raped. And so I was wondering what was on your mind, or what were some of the questions that you had on your mind taking power at a time when there was so much suffering and so much healing that needed to happen?
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be here to share with this audience the story of my country and things beyond. On that particular question, it was very difficult to imagine, first of all, to know where to start from.
Yeah.
How does one start rebuilding a country that has been entirely destroyed? Millions of people internally and externally displaced from their homes and workplace. 1 million over dead, institutions destroyed. Starting from scratch was very a daunting task, but we had to figure out to start with the people that were there, those who had survived, those who had been involved in the struggle, to just kind of bring about some normal life, semblance of stability. Mm-hmm. And we created an environment, started with how people could feel secure, mm-hmm. How do they get food, water, running, and things like that. But we started in a small way, and one step leading to another, and we found we were simply making good progress that we are still making today.
Yeah. So one of the people I had met there, he had told me that he had lost 12 of his family members in the genocide. And I'm wondering, what has been your process in helping in the balance between forgiveness, reconciliation, and then also making people accountable for their actions? Because it seems that people need to move forward, but that there's enormous pain. And often in the West, I know I can hold resentment for somebody for showing up late to a meeting, for example. And in Rwanda, there was so much pain that people had to.
Well, there's so much pain, and we've learned very many lessons from that, including the hard lessons. But right from the beginning, Rwandans refused to be trapped in this tragic history. Yeah. We knew what had happened, but we had a future to look up to, mm-hmm. And therefore we undertook to deal with this very complex situation of indeed balancing need for reconciliation, so that the country comes back together and we move forward, and need for justice to make sure that people who were responsible for this heinous crime were brought to justice. So, in fact, in contemporary justice system, we could not easily find an answer. And therefore we looked to our traditional means of reconciling the society, and that's how we had a process known as gacaca, mm-hmm. which is really, the meaning of it is restorative justice. Mm-hmm. It allows reconciliation to take place, as well as justice or a sense of accountability to happen. And that's how we saw millions of people processed through this justice system and allowed back to go to their villages to live again together and stabilize and be able to move forward. It has been a very difficult task, because justice and reconciliation on one hand, these are necessary to be carried out together, but at the same time, they conflict, because when you are pursuing accountability and justice, at the same time you want to reconcile, there is always a big amount of friction.
Yeah.
But we have nonetheless made good progress on that as well.
Great. And one of the efforts that you've put forward once taking power was, if I understand it right, that it was mandated that in the legislature 30% would be women, and that currently over 60% are women. Could you speak a little bit about why you prioritize that?
Well, first of all, historically, even in the Rwandan culture and values, a woman is given a central place in the management of a family and in a wider context of society. So even during our struggle of liberation in Rwanda for the transformation of our country, we saw women play a very prominent role in that as well. So we started by making sure that in all processes, especially in the public sector, women, public institutions, women, we said, because there was already existence of imbalance, we agreed that we should not have less than 30% women participating in public institutions.
It'd be nice if you could help us with that too, after you're done with Rwanda.
We're still struggling with our own situation. So we saw in 1997-8, we saw women. In fact, the parliament has benefited most, or has done better than other places. We saw 8% in 1996-7, then we saw 49% in 2003, then we saw 56% in 2008, and recently in 2012, we saw women at 64%. So that has its own problems. There is a danger there may be 100%, and the men will start complaining. So, but so far so good because of where we have come from and the imbalance that has been there before. I think correcting that has been very helpful, and women, who constitute, by the way, 53% of our population. In any case, this is a big population to ignore. It is too big to ignore. Secondly, it is also a rights issue for women. So we've seen that progress, and it has done a lot of good to the country.
Yeah. I don't know of any other, do you know of any other country that has taken that on so directly?
There are good efforts in Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Denmark, Norway. Yeah. In Africa, there are other areas like South Africa. We've seen Uganda, in Ethiopia, different places in the western part of Africa. They are making good progress from a very low base indeed. So we hope we can continue on the same path.
And one of the other things you've done, you've been a trailblazer in, and I mention this in part because we're in the Bay Area, the home of many technologies, is you were called the technology president by one of the articles I was reading. And you've been a very active user of Twitter. And I'd love to hear why you became attracted to that, or why that medium as a means of communication became something that I'm sure you have a lot of other things you could be doing. So why were you drawn to Twitter as a communication device?
First, let me declare that I'm no expert in technology, but I know what good it can bring to society, and have been in wanting to tap into that as a person, but also do that and encourage our people to get involved with that. So, but on the particular case of Twitter, I started using Twitter in, I think, 2010, actively so. And it was very interesting because I found it's less, it is cost effective. You communicate with the whole population that have access to that or that are using it, and you get free information, free advice.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting interaction, and so I thought I needed to do that, and I found it very interesting. Sometimes I am involved even in debates, discussions, conversations over a wide range of subjects, and I have found it personally fulfilling and enriching, and I'm sure maybe the others feel the same as well.
Yeah. And how do you see Rwanda now in terms of developing? Do you have a vision for where you want it to go in terms of the place for business and investment in technology? Do you have a sense of what this next chapter is for Rwanda?
Yes. We put in place a vision in the year 2000, that would guide us for another 20 years. So to speak, we've just gone a little bit beyond halfway. And the vision was to guide us, all Rwandans, building on where we are coming from and cognizant of that, and the means available to us, or those that we can borrow or get from elsewhere, and where we want it to be. And it starts by informing us that we can be a middle-income country, say, by 2020. That was our aim. Starting from a GDP per capita that we had in about in the mid-90s of $200.
The medium income was $200.
So we want to move up to the middle income, above maybe 1,200 GDP per capita. So we are now more or less halfway. We are about close to $650. So we've made this progress in these last years. But the main focus has been to invest in the people. Our people are our main resource, our main asset, and it would be more meaningful so depending on how we invest in our people, especially giving them good health, allowing them to enjoy good health. Secondly, through education, because we wanted to base our knowledge, our economy on knowledge. Then build infrastructure that would serve business and would serve the people, that they can use their knowledge to be productive. We looked at agriculture, which has been the mainstay of our people, how we can develop that as we diversify from it and go into other areas like services and manufacturing and other areas that have come to be central to the development and the growth of our economy.
Yeah.
So this is how we have been moving.
Right. And there's a lot of focus right now on the needs of Africa. What do you feel, as the president, it's a two-part question, what do you feel like are the real needs of the support that Africa needs? And what do you feel like Rwanda and Africa's message to the United States, the medicine that we could use, that maybe Africa is more in touch with and Rwanda is more in touch with? Between the two cultures and two worlds, what do you think each could ideally offer each other?
Let me start to answer the question by saying this. The onus is on us, Rwandans or Africans. First of all, we must embrace and have the attitude that we can do many things. It is possible for us to do so many things that would take us out of poverty that you see across Africa, or get us out of conflicts, or all kinds of disease and so on and so forth. There is a lot in Africa with and by Africans that can happen to do that. Having said that, it's not going to be that we can do it ourselves and without others. So in that sense, there is a need for strong partnerships that we need to enter into between Rwanda and United States, or Africa and United States, and different countries of our continent. First, working together, and then together working with other continents or other countries, especially developed countries like the United States. So more importantly, therefore, I would want to emphasize strong relations, collaborative efforts, and partnerships are very important. United States, being the country it is, endowed with all kinds of resources. It's an innovation country, it's technology, it's finance, all kinds of resources are abundant here. I think it would be very healthy for United States and even more beneficial for Africa if there was that collaboration and strong partnerships, doing business together, allowing trade to happen, and exchange in different areas. Institutions like I know were represented here in area of technology, innovation, and finance, and each side availing the resources available for mutual benefit and interest. So that would be my message to the United States.
And how about some of the things you feel like Africa could teach the United States in? Do you have a sense of what some of those might be? Like, for example, when I went to Africa, I was in Nigeria and Rwanda, and I would often meet somebody and they say, "Oh, come over, hang out at my house." And we'd spend an hour or two just at their house. Here, I ask somebody if they want to hang out, and I'll say, "How about 3 weeks from now from 5 to 5:30? And,
or how about not doing this?
There's a different quality of being, and I don't know if you have a sense of elements that you feel like could be helpful for us here that maybe Africa and Rwanda are actually more in touch with.
I get a sense, starting from Rwanda itself, our people, even with this background of a tragic history and division that has been there, and the politics that have, destroyed our country, we still see people relating very well, family people, society trying to be there, each individual for the other, not necessarily against the other. This happened because something wrong somewhere in our history happened, and people were divided. But culturally and traditionally, really find there is a lot of feeling for one another, that things can happen when they work together and they have interest in being there for one another. It's something that you see across Africa.
Strong family units.
Yes, the family units. As nations, you find they still work together. In some of the places I have seen, each on their own.
And is so you have, if I understand right, each month, at the last Friday of each month in Rwanda is Community Service Day, and the roads are closed so people can't drive, and everybody's supposed to do a half a day, if I'm correct, of community service. And that depends.
Every Saturday.
Every Saturday.
Saturday
Okay.
ending.
And whether you have lots of money or very little money or whatever your place in society for that time, you come together and build gardens or schools or whatever. Can you say a little bit about how that was initiated? And
this started about 10 years ago, or slightly before that. And the whole idea was really to do a number of things, to try and again bring the people of Rwanda together after divisive politics that separated people for different reasons and did the harm that it did. We wanted to again bring back a sense of community and around service that everybody benefits from. So it was introduced right from the grassroots at the local administration level coming up. And we found that this has been very beneficial. For example, schools are built, clinics, roads, there's cleaning that happens across the entire country. That's why if you, maybe you would have seen this in our capital and outside even the capital, in the countryside, the country is clean, no plastic bags thrown around, and we're trying to raise the sense that there are things we can do that will enhance, our dignity and our spirit of working together and, pride in who we are. And so, and we started doing that. And we found, for example, the debate was about, I remember raising to people that while we need money from donors and from other things to do different things, we surely wouldn't need the donors' money to clean our homesteads and, and environment. And yes, we can do it ourselves. So it starts from that and leads to another thing. Now it has become a culture and people do it. Actually, there is not much enforcement.
There's not
happening. No, now it almost happens.
People want to go
smoothly. Yes, they want to. And then what you mentioned, I think Friday you wanted to mention was for
the sports.
For sports.
Okay.
So every afternoon on Fridays, people slow down their work and get involved in sports again across the cities and the entire country.
And I'm curious because part of what we're talking about at this event is how do we live mindfully with in this very fast-paced age. And I'm sure the pressures of presidency are intense. Yes. Do you have certain practices yourself or ways that you help to kind of calm or relax, come back into center? Are there things that you do, whether it's sports or something else that you find helps to invigorate you?
Right. I do sports. I play tennis, I work out, but in most cases I relax back at home and enjoy my family and visit friends, relatives. But of course, most of the time it is work. So I try to break away from that whenever I can and relax a bit.
And do you see other African nations in a similar pace? There's a huge amount of challenges right now in Africa, and we hear about them a lot. Do you feel like what you're doing in Rwanda can be replicated in other places? And how would you see that happening?
Especially given how we have benefited from this we are doing that is also watched by many others. There have been many other African countries doing similar things in a different way, in a different setting, to improve their own well-being and lives. But more importantly, two things happen. A number of countries have sought to come to Rwanda to see how some of the things have worked for us, and maybe they can work for them, or there is modification, in order for them to these things to work for them. But at the same time, we are encouraging regional cooperation across the continent. For example, in the part of my country, there is the East African Community, which brings together 5 countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, and Rwanda. This is a population of about 135 million people. So we always share best practices. What we can learn one from another country, and the other country will learn from the other, and it has been working quite well. There are other parts of the continent, whether it is West Africa or Southern Africa or Central Africa, there are institutions of cooperation that have been emerging, and through this we keep working together. Of course, the uptake in one country may be more than another, but the trend is the same.
Yeah.
Some countries are ahead of others, but we are all trying to see how we can make good progress.
And do you feel like these programs that you've started, whether it's the Service Day and the greater representation of women, that those are helping to build a certain connection and compassion in the country, and that was possibly missing when the genocide happened, and that?
Absolutely. Working together and the benefits that come out of that, the progress that is being made in every individual's life, all these have, convinced people that maybe behaving this way or going this path is the best way for us and for us to get a better future. And you can see harmony in the country, you can see people happy. Sometimes you would be surprised, 20 years after a genocide, 1 million people lost, every family affected, to find that Rwandans, happy people, they go about their lives in a way that they show they are living a normal life.
One of the things that surprised me was the joy and the smiles that often people had. And then when I actually found out about their lives, I was dumbfounded at how they could be so joyous. And often here in the States, the stock market goes down 5%, and you see everybody walking around depressed. And there's people who've suffered so much and yet are able to have a certain joy about them.
That is happening.
Is there a secret there that we could, is there some element there? Do you feel like there's a teaching in suffering sometimes as much as we don't want it?
I think so. I think in resource-constrained countries or countries like mine that have gone through such hardships and a tragedy like we had 20 years ago, I think in most cases it will happen, at least in my case it is happening, that really people come out, more or less fighting and wanting to make a difference for themselves and wanting to show that we can leave this behind and where we deserve is a different place, and that's where they want to move to. So I think in a way, as I said, the hard lessons learned from our tragedy, there is this silver lining that people come out more energized, more thoughtful, more mindful about what life means, and they want to achieve that.
Great. We just have 1 or 2 minutes left. Is there any last words you want to leave us with? And I know you're doing a breakout question and answer. So people
well, I'm grateful to the audience, and I invite everybody to be part of our story. And there are many things they have in their means to be helpful to the process, as well as maybe we can participate in contributing to their satisfaction.
Great. And the tourism Rwanda, I'm sure, is open for people to visit.
Yes, it's a beautiful country. There are rare mountain gorillas. You can only find them in that area, Rwanda, Uganda, DRC, mainly the bigger parties on the side of Rwanda, and the people, the culture, the animals in the park, and the tropical forests with the rare species of birds, monkeys, and plants. And so it's a wonderful place. And we are the most welcoming people that you would ever know.
That was my experience.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much for coming and joining us.